Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make the chicken pesto pasta. So at the moment I am tipping out my green beans. So I always like to get all the ingredients ready before I actually start cooking, if possible, because it just makes life a little bit easier along the way. So I've got 1.5 packs of green beans here. I think they're about 220 grams per packet. Obviously, if you like more or less green beans, you can add according to your own tastes. So I'm just chopping the ends off here and then chopping them in half. And then I'm putting them all in a little Tupperware container ready for later. I just find it a lot easier than getting it all ready as and when you need it. And it's all ready and prepared in advance then for you. Now I've got my little cherry tomatoes out and ready. I'm tipping them all out now. These are the Nightingale Farm ones that I use from Tesco's. I've got 1.5 bags of tomatoes there. They're 250 grams each. So all I'm going to do with these is chop them all in half. They like to roll around a lot and try and escape. But yeah, chop them in half and put them in another Tupperware little dish and keep them to one side for now. So there they are already in the little container. And then I've got my mozzarella ball here. I just use a whole mozzarella ball, just a cream filled one. So 60p, 69p, something like that. And all you want to do is chop it up into little chunks. The recipe that I did use says to make mozzarella pearls, but I just literally chop it into chunks because it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Now we're going to move on to the chicken, and I'm using 4 large chicken breasts here, but sometimes I use 5 if they're not so big. And all I'm going to do with this is basically just cut everything up into small chunks. I'm not fussy about how I cut them, but I am fussy about the kind of chicken, so it takes me ages and ages to cut them because I don't like any yucky bits that sometimes you find in the chicken. So yeah, I cut it all up, remove any nasty bits and pop all of the chicken in a saucepan so that it's ready just to start cooking when I've finished chopping it. And there we go, that's the chicken all finished and prepared and popped in the saucepan ready to cook on the hob. So I'm popping it all in there and I'll cook it until it's nice and browned. So then I'm going to add just a tiny little bit of oil, probably about a tablespoon, maybe 2. I've just got vegetable oil basically, and give it a stir just to stop it from sticking to the pan and burning. And then I leave that to cook a little bit, stir it regularly. Next thing I did was I've got 2 saucepans and I need to fill them both, well, half fill them with water. This is for the pasta. I have to do 2 different lots of pasta because I've got to do gluten-free for me and ordinary pasta for the girls and Simon. So if you're just doing normal pasta, then you only need 1 saucepan of water. I've moved the chicken to the back ring because the front one was not working properly, and obviously you want your chicken to cook. I'm going to give that a good stir, and then I am going to put the pasta water on to start heating through whilst the chicken is browning off. As you can see, the chicken is cooking much better now I've put it on the back ring. It's turning nice and white slowly, so I'm going to keep stirring it every now and again just to make sure it cooks properly. So I'm adding a tiny bit of salt to each saucepan now to make sure that the pasta doesn't stick together whilst it's cooking. Well, this is what I've always done. So I've got my gluten-free pasta, which I put in probably about a handful and a bit, quite a large handful and a little bit. So I keep that in obviously a separate saucepan, give it a quick stir before I put the lid back on to cook. And then we've got a couple of different types of ordinary pasta here. Because that one is for Simon, Hannah and Rebecca, I use probably about 4.5, maybe even 5 handfuls, just to make sure they all get quite a good amount, since I've got 1.5 handfuls. put the lids back on and they can be cooking whilst your chicken is finishing. Then what I do is I drain my chicken because I don't like the water left in the saucepan that comes out of the chicken, and I find the pesto sticks to the chicken much better. So I've got my green pesto jar, which I put the whole thing in and give it a good mix in. You're not supposed to, as far as I know, cook the pesto, but I tend to warm it through a little bit with the chicken. And the original recipe says to keep the chicken breast whole and grill it with the pesto on it, but I prefer to do it this way. Now I've got my green beans and I'm going to portion it up, so I have 1/4 of the green beans in with my pasta. I put these in about 5 minutes before the pasta is going to be done, so that gives them a good chance to cook through. And leave that to cook, put the lids back on and give them a bit of a stir. That way the green beans will be nice and tender with a tiny little bit of a crunch. Obviously you can put them in sooner if you like them softer. Once your pasta and green beans are cooked, you can just drain them off. And once that's draining, you can portion up your pesto pasta. So I'm doing my gluten-free portion here. So just taking out 1/4 of that and putting it in the saucepan that I cooked my pasta in. And then once I've done that, I'm going to add my pasta with my green beans back in. Then I'm going to turn the other pasta and green beans off and drain that one as well. And then it looks like I'm going to play musical saucepans here for a minute before I add in the green beans and the pasta to the other pesto chicken and give that a good stir. I do have the heat on very slightly when I'm doing this, just to keep it warm throughout, and you can always pop the lid back on. You only need a tiny bit of heat because otherwise it will burn and stick to the bottom of your saucepan. And what I'm going to add in next is some creme fraiche. So the original recipe says to add in 2 tablespoons of creme fraiche. But because I'm doing separate portions, a gluten-free one for me and a non-gluten-free one for the other 3, I am going to put 2 and a bit spoons in for them and 1 and a bit spoons in for me. So I've got my chopped cherry tomatoes here that I'm popping in now. So I've got 1/4 in with my gluten-free one and 3/4 in with the other one. So I just want to give those a really good mix through so that it's all combined really well. And then I pop my lid back on, keep the heat going through it, and give the other one a good mix through as well. Then you're just going to replace the lid on that one and keep them both warm just for a few minutes. Add your salt and pepper to each of them, however much you like, really. It depends on your tastes. You may not want to add salt and pepper at all. I've got some mozzarella here that I've cut up. And I put 1/4 in with mine and the rest in with Simon and the girls. And that would be the last thing that you add in. Just give it a good stir through. It's very difficult to stir it through unless you've got a very big saucepan or a crock pot or something like that. Now this is what it looks like now you've made it all. Everything's combined. It's nice and hot. All you've got to do now is dish it up. So portion it out into whatever you want to have it in. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's absolutely delicious. And it's just kind of like a light pesto pasta chicken. Not too heavy, but it's definitely filling and it's very tasty. Thank you for watching and let me know if you've tried it.